kérdésem az lenne.
My question is whether the Prime Minister considers this kind of decision sufficient, or if there might be any other form of support to help the Hungarians in Transcarpathia. And could this decision affect Zelensky's possible visit to Hungary?
He should be banned, that is what you are trying to say. Negotiations, they are negotiable. My apologies. The people of Szentgotthard are famously well-mannered, so I thought this was not necessary. He will say it as harshly as I do, but the problem is that it is not those carrying out the conscription who should be banned, but the Ukrainian president. This is a legitimate and sensible suggestion. Now let us talk a bit about this and its context. First, let us send our greetings to the people of Transcarpathia, to the Hungarians who are in a very difficult situation. Let us send them the message that we support them. We do not make a big fuss about it, because they are already being harassed by the authorities. But every single Hungarian soldier who dies on the Ukrainian front can count on the help of the Hungarian state, not only in words. We reach out to the families, and wherever we can, we help everyone, we just do not make a big fuss about it. We help everyone, we just do not trumpet it. But there are the high-profile deaths, because there are those who die in combat on the front, and there is also violence related to forced conscription, regardless of their health condition. Conscription completely disregards those who then do not die at the front, but beforehand, those who are beaten to death, like the first victim, the other one taken away. We know what this is about. And this cannot be tolerated in silence. Peter Sajato has a mandate to keep this issue on the agenda in Brussels. We are dealing with this at home, we note everything, we know everything, we record everything, and everything will, in due course, have consequences. Because everything has its appointed time. The times when we look like fools and let them mess with us are long gone. That is over, and it is better if everyone takes note of that. Our neighbors should, especially with regard to Ukraine, but we are in a different world now, certainly since 2010. However, what you mentioned in your introduction, how and in what ways we should shape our relations with the Ukrainians beyond the forced conscription, is an important question. My position now is that the Ukrainians should not be allowed into the European Union. And I tell Hungarians that we should not want to belong to a military or an economic alliance with them, because that would lead to trouble, two kinds of trouble. The first is that they will drag us into the war. And this remains true even if a peace agreement is made. Because who can guarantee that on the 200-kilometer long front line, even if there is peace now, a year later or 2 years later there will not be war again in exactly the same way? No one can guarantee that. And if we are members, they will pull us into the war. This is what Mr. Weber is talking about. There is no such thing as a European Union member state being attacked or becoming involved in a military conflict and the others not going along. Everyone goes, the money goes, the soldiers go, the weapons go. Therefore, the Ukrainians should not be allowed into the European Union in the foreseeable future, because they present a continuous war risk for us. At any time a new Russian-Ukrainian conflict could arise, and we would be involved in this conflict, which has nothing to do with us. The second issue is that, if we allow the Ukrainians in, our farmers, our local producers, are already grumbling because of the influx from there. Products produced under much looser regulations, of poorer quality but cheaper, are already challenging Hungarian agriculture. So we must establish some form of cooperation with the Ukrainians that is beneficial for both them and us. Not something that only benefits them and harms us, no, but something that is good for everyone, which I call a strategic partnership. We will come to an agreement, but not about membership, that is a different ballgame, but about how we will trade, how investments will proceed, calmly, step by step. Without creating an obligation that would drag us into a war against Russia alongside them. That must not happen. Therefore, we need to cooperate with the Ukrainians, but membership is out of the question. That is the first thing. The second thing is that the Ukrainians must understand that they have to abandon their constant demands in Brussels, that they should stop always trying to arrange for Hungary to be cut off, separated from cheap Russian energy. As long as Ukraine does this, then Ukraine, I must say, in my view, is our enemy. Ukraine is infringing on our fundamental interests by doing so, constantly demanding, and Brussels is urging, that Hungary be disconnected from cheap Russian energy. Whoever does this is not an adversary but an enemy of Hungary. Let me give you the numbers. If there is no Russian oil and no Russian gas, then you and all of us will pay the following prices. Today, an average utility bill for a year, I am talking about the average, is 250,000 forints. But in Poland and the Czech Republic, it is 800,000 or even 1 million. Your question is ultimately about how stable, fixed, and orderly Ukraine is, and about the future of the Ukrainian state and army. So we had to be concerned that a situation might arise in which things in Ukraine spiral out of control and escape oversight, and from that point onward Ukraine might pose a threat to Hungary with its massive army, which has been built up with European funds, right? And they also make threats, because sometimes a commander lets slip that they can reach Budapest in however many hours, if necessary. These are the kinds of things our Ukrainian friends say while asking for our vote. So the answer is that Ukraine's future is not settled. Whether the Russians will fully occupy Ukraine, or in the end, something I would not bet on, but the Union is playing this game. Ukraine and the Union together will defeat the Russians at the front and push them back as far as Moscow, or an ungoverned territory is created, another Afghanistan or something similar. Nobody can say for sure today. All I can say is that we run the least risk if we stay out of any such conflict that takes place on Ukrainian territory. And in the meantime, we take care to strengthen ourselves, financially for instance. It is no coincidence, I do not want to talk about this at length, that Hungary has never had as large foreign currency reserves and gold reserves as it has today. There is a reason for this. And never has Hungary spent so much money on acquiring modern weapons and building up the military's capability to stop anyone who would turn against Hungary.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.